of you just hopping in, I'm super excited for our guest today, Belal Batrawy. He was on the Think Outside the Script Summer Virtual Tour and talked about sales psychology, and it was one of the sort of hit talks on the tour. And
oh, don't flatter, Jason.
But he's someone that I look to a lot, especially around messaging. And one of the things that about his experience that really sticks out is he's been a 7-time startup seller. So he's been on like the founding sales team of like 7 startups. So he's always kind of had been the person that like had to figure out a lot of things for himself, which is very different than a lot of the situations, people on these webinars are in, where you're coming into a company that's already been in business for 10, 20 years type of thing. But he does advising, he does consulting, and he is also, I don't know, what do you call the founder of the Death to Fluff movement? Is that founder, creator, chief instigator?
Awesome. Yeah, I love
that. But yeah, Death to Fluff. Welcome, man. It's good to have you on the webinar again.
Thank you, Jason. It's an honor to always be working with you, man. You're one of my favorites in the sales community, without a doubt. You're a true leader. Thanks for always putting on great content.
I appreciate it, man. Tell us a little bit more about Death to Fluff, though. Excuse me, and then we'll get into the content for today.
I mean, can any seller relate to like, it's not your fault, but it is your problem, as like the motto for like what happens to you as a seller? It's like, they messed with your commission check. They gave you a shitty comp plan. Well, the company didn't make the right decisions with the product. Like things aren't going so well, so we're gonna have to let you go first. It's never your fault, but it is your problem. And Death to Fluff is just like the movement against that bullshit of like, sellers don't need to be collateral damage. That's not, it shouldn't be that way.
No, I love that. And we'll drop your LinkedIn profile into the chat after this. But and Seth asked if there will be a recording. Yeah, there'll definitely be a recording I'll send out to you guys after this. But let's dig in to subject lines, man. And I'll send out a LinkedIn link, like I said, to you guys in the chat, so you can follow Belal's stuff here at the end. There's just a lot of really, really good content he's putting out on a daily basis around this Death to Fluff movement that I really resonate with. But dude, we're talking subject lines today.
Yeah.
So
big one.
Subject lines. Why would this even be a time? I mean, we talked about potential topics. Like, why would this be something that people should care about?
Because if you suck at it, you're just losing millions, with no exaggeration. It's not even I don't even care what you sell. You could be selling, Chrome widgets for $5, or like, Boeing jets to Emirates. Doesn't really matter. If you can't get people to open your emails, you've lost one of the most valuable forms of communication out there. And the reality is, today, people like myself, sellers like myself, don't get trained on how to do copywriting.
Yep.
So I took 6 different sales trainings. I did Winning by Design, Sandler, Corporate Visions, all this sort of stuff. I think in all the trainings I did, only one ever brought up anything around subject lines and like email copy. And the section about it was, like this, it was like a footnote kind of thing. Like, and by the way, we just don't get taught it, but you need to. If you really want to make money for yourself, you need to know this is a superpower worth getting.
Yeah. Before you dig in, I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat, just to get, because we kind of have a fairly loose agenda. Belal's got some content he's prepared, but we really want to help you guys as much as possible too. What is your biggest challenge with subject lines? Hit us in the chat. Let us know. What's your biggest challenge when it comes to subject line? Is it not knowing what to say? Never being taught, whatever it is, people not opening up your emails. Let us know in the chat. What's your biggest challenge with writing subject lines?
Keeping it short. Long. Yeah, keeping it short.
Yeah, how to stand out.
Too salesy. Creativity. Yeah.
Yeah, these are really good, you guys. I'm just writing some of these down too to make sure we get to them. Yeah, keeping it short.
Going to spam. Yeah, not looking spammy for sure. Very easy to look spammy.
One thing I'm curious about too, Belal, as you dig into, is do they have to be short? I think there's this kind of like, does it have to be 3 words? Does it have to be 4? Like, what is the minimum amount that it should be, or what is the maximum amount, I guess?
It can't eat your preview line. because you need both. You can't talk, so guys, you can't talk subject line without preview line too, right? It's the same thing, right? I see a subject, then I see the preview. Even a good subject line with a shitty preview line, I'm still going to be like, nope, you know, I'm going to get rid of it. So subject and preview line. And if your subject line's too long, you don't get enough of the preview. And then you don't want to read a long subject. It's just like, whatever, you know, it's so much easier to delete than it is to open. It's just like, man, delete, whatever. Skip it.
I agree, man. Well, let's dig in, dude.
Okay.
Let me know, you guys. There's a Q&A button in Zoom too. If you have a specific question that you'd like to get answered, put it in the Q&A so I don't lose it, and I can make sure that we get to it. And Belal's gonna kind of take it away here. He's got some content for you guys.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give you guys 3 formulas. All right. So I'll give you examples of how these formulas work, and they address all the things that you guys just talked about. We're talking about keeping it short, keeping it creative, getting it opened, right? Those are the 3 outcomes here. And for the question I was asked from Monica, the preview line is the first roughly 30 to 50 characters of the actual email, because you could see the subject line and then you get a little bit of preview of the text, the body of the email. The first essential sentence, or maybe part of that sentence, is the preview line. So when I'm talking subject line, I'm including preview line because it's essentially what the viewer sees before they open your email, when they decide, are they going to open it or not? So let me go ahead and share my screen, and I'll give you guys some context to kind of what the challenge is today. No problem. So first and foremost, story time. John Barrows, if you guys have heard of his name, famous sales trainer, maybe the most famous in the US, goes on vacation for 2 weeks and comes back from an inbox that was at 0 to 2,000 plus emails in 2 freaking weeks. Disgusting, right? I'm just like, it's insane. He goes through and he does an analysis of his inbox, and he posted this on LinkedIn. So you can go and try to find his LinkedIn post. Of that, 0 sales emails were personalized. I mean, insane.
Crazy.
So the amount of noise in this man's inbox, and yet none of the emails, in his opinion, were even worth opening. It's a pretty depressing number. So these are the things that you're stacked against. All right. And the thing about emails and subject lines in general is that you're graded on a curve. So don't think about how insanely, like, don't overpressure yourself. Like, I have to be so creative that it is just the best email ever gotten, and they're going to like post it on LinkedIn. No, you're actually graded on a curve. And the nice thing is, all that competition you're facing are having the same problems you are, and the curve is pretty forgiving. So this is what people are sending today, and this is a live shot. So this is from Todd Caponi, the author of The Transparency Sale, one of the best sales books out there to date. And this is a shot of him when he used to be a CRO. So I'm going to put up here, CRO, pick the right color, CRO. And he was getting plus 50 emails a day. And this was the crap that he was getting. So we've got, question for you, Todd, free at 2 p.m. today, following up, top sales talent. And he highlighted already, he just knew from the preview line, it was an automatic delete. Just checking in. I wanted to, I've reached out to you a couple times. I'm just wondering. Super easy to delete because it just reeks of a sales email, right? So
can you, Bilal, real quick, because someone was asking, how do you define whether an email is personalized or not?
A personalized email, great question. A personalized email is, if I sent it by accident to you, Jason, and it was supposed to go to Todd, it would make no sense. That's what personalized means, because it was written for Todd and I accidentally sent it to you, and you'd look at it and be like, I don't even know what he's talking about.
And of course, replacing the name, any merge tags or anything like that.
That's right. What most people send is customized emails, not personalized. Customized might be like, if you or Todd got it, as long as you're both CFOs at, SaaS companies, it would make sense. But personalized means it's only for the individual who's receiving it.
Yeah, gotcha. And by the way, I see people dropping stuff into the chat. If you have a question, please put it into the Q&A, especially if it's a subject line that you want to have us maybe run through. Drop that into the Q&A and give us some context into who you're reaching out to, who you sell to, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, we can totally roast subject lines. So throw yours in and get some free advice and get it tweaked right now, because this is the time to do it. We will totally tweak.
He's going to do some roasting of me too.
I am. I got a bone to pick with Jason. Yeah, we will. We'll get to that. So anyway, so the curve is gracious because you're getting benchmarked off these shitty subject lines, which is great. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I'm world class at jumping over low bars. I mean, like a pro. So I love a low bar when I see it because I'm like, hey, I got that all day, every day. And the good news is the bar is insanely low for subject lines because sales emails today are getting blasted out with horrible copy. So you don't have to do too much to cut above this noise and beat out these sellers who are sending these emails to Todd when he was a CRO. So the question then becomes, how do we do it?
Yeah, can you real quick, just because I know I'm interrupting you a lot here, man. But the preview line, I noticed just because people were asking about the preview line, can you point out specifically like where the preview line shows up and like why it's important to the open rate here?
Yes. So all of this stuff over here, that's preview line. And then let me pick a different color. All this stuff right here, that's subject line. So subject right here. And then over here, this is preview text. All right. So, when you like open up your phone right now and you go to your like email or something, you're going to see the subject line and then you're going to see a cutoff version of the preview line, but you're going to see usually the first 30 to around 90 characters of an email body. So the first 30 to 90 characters is typically the range that most phones and most email clients like Gmail and Outlook will preview after the subject line.
Gotcha. Just wanted to clarify, a lot of people were asking about preview lines earlier.
No problem.
It's the most underlooked part of the open rate.
It is. It matters a lot. All right. So now we know what the bar is. So let me show you guys how it used to work and why you want to avoid doing this now. All right. So this was back when outreach was cool and new and different. This was back in like 2012. I was one of the first customers of theirs. And you can see right here, we had this blast email. This is not personalized at all. 10,000 emails sent to nearly 3,000 prospects. And we were getting a 45% open rate and a nearly 10% response rate on cold emails. And our subject lines were, by like today's standard, pretty shitty. But you could get away with that stuff. We were sending this out to recruiters, and you can see right here where it says, connect about recruiting and a question mark. So questions work, but nowadays, if you sent this same email, I'm pretty sure we'd end up in the delete folder like those sellers before, because these tactics don't work. Everybody's got sales engagement platforms now. You have to think a little bit differently about how you hit these subject lines. Do not just go for a question. Questions don't work anymore. And that's the biggest gimmick I see getting pushed by like sales gurus, that crap doesn't work. Right? You and I both know if we got that kind of an email, we'd know it's a sales email and we can delete it.
Yep.
All right. So this was the good old days. This stuff wouldn't fly now. So what does fly? Okay. Let's kind of reverse engineer what we're trying to get. This is the reaction we want from our buyers. All right. So I want people to see my email and go, what? Like, I want to break that pattern that Todd was having. This is literally the face I want him to have, like up here, like I want him to see the email and go, huh? Right? Like it just didn't fit the pattern. I broke the mold. Something stuck out. And he's like, I don't get what this is. Is this important? I want to just see what this is about before I delete it. Right? I want this kind of Keanu Reeves face of like, I don't get it. Like I understand what you're saying, but I don't get what this email is about. All right. So everyone picture that. Keep these memes in mind when we go through these 3 formulas. And without further ado, here they are. All right. So formula number 1. All right. So we're going to call this one word plays. All right. So you can look this up afterwards. Word plays aren't new, but they're not often used well because they're really hard to come up with. Here's an example of a word play: napkin, food, water, cobra. It's like, wait, what? I was with you with napkin. You have napkins when you eat food. You can drink water when you have food. What the hell does Cobra have to do anything with these 3 words? It doesn't. It's a pattern interrupt. It totally breaks the pattern of what we're talking about. And these are great to do in sales emails, because what you want to do is find something that your buyer thinks about, put 2, maximum 3. So let me repeat this: 2, maximum 3 words that are relatable, and then 1 word at the end that has nothing to do with the 2 or 3 words you said. Okay. So I'm going to give you guys an example. When I worked at TriNet, we were an HR company that sold PEO solutions, professional employer organization solutions, to small businesses. So HR, we had to call into HR and email them. They were just like Todd. They got a bunch of emails. Nobody read it. So what was our subject line? Here was the subject line: China, Ford, Einstein. All right. You're like, what? What is that for a subject line, Bedad? It's amazing. So I would literally put their first name. So it'd be like Jason, China, Ford, Einstein, question mark. And then in the body of my email, I would explain what I was saying, and I would give you a hook to connect it to what I was talking about. I would say, what's crazy is during the economic downturn, China and Ford actually grew their businesses because they took a play straight out of Albert Einstein. They refused to follow the status quo, and they looked at the problem differently than other companies around them. What are you doing to look at the problem differently? Or are you going to try the same answers everybody else is and end up with the same results? So let me pause there for a second. Do you see how we used the wordplay to hook into the body of the email to explain a concept for the buyer that relates the words back to their business?
So if we kind of step back a little bit, did you come up with that analogy, or is that an analogy that you guys used a lot to explain, your product and stuff? Like, where did the analogy come from?
So the analogy it made it up, right? We were trying to think about, we want people to change the status quo. When people buy our HR tech, they're doing something different for their business that most companies don't. So we need people who want to think differently, who identify that way. So that's why we use that sort of subject line. So word plays can come in more, that's exotic, if you will, China, Ford, and Einstein. You can water it down a bit more. Let's say we're selling something as simple as like paperless invoicing, right? It might be like invoicing, paper cuts, and then we want to throw in a word that's a little bit weird, right? We're going to throw them off pace with the third word. So the third word might be something like, we'll say 4G on the moon. So it's like, wait a second, paperless or like invoices, paper cuts, 4G on the moon? What are you talking about? And then the body of the email is going to say something like, why on earth in 2020 are you getting paper cuts dealing with invoices when we're literally putting 4G on the moon? Is it crazy to think that your invoicing can be done paperlessly in a world where you can download your, whatever, the funniest memes you love on the moon?
Oh God, it's so good, dude.
So it's a provocative
I'm throwing this
message
into the chat for you guys, by the way, just so you can kind of see it visually. Go ahead, Belal. Sorry.
No, please do. Please do. Now, let me kind of back up for a second. Word plays are the hardest of the 3 formulas I'm going to show you today. So if you're listening to me on word plays and you're like, what? Don't sweat it. Okay. Word plays are great. They're our method. Some of you might be thinking, I can probably come up with a word play where it's like 2 very similar words that I would normally say, and then 1 weird word that just throws them off. But if you can't come up with a word play, or this one's a little bit too abstract, we all think and learn differently, right? Some of us are auditory, some of us are visual learners. Like, we all have our different styles of how we think. There's a portion of the 287 people on this call that can totally do a word play. And there's some of us that are like, I have no clue what this guy's talking about. So I got you. There's 2 more formulas you can follow, but word plays are a great way to boost your open rate into that 60+% category.
Can we there's some comments and questions I think that would be good to get to.
Yeah.
David said, my brains are all over my keyboard right now.
Yeah.
Please no. Okay, so Kyle says, does wordplay not look spammy? And can you elaborate, Belal, too? Like, is there anything around the capitalization of these? Do you capitalize the first letter of each of the words if it's a proper noun versus if it's not? Like, does any of that sort of matter in terms of how the words are displayed with commas versus plus sign? Any of that kind of stuff?
I would keep it simple. Mm-hmm. The reader's first name, if you've got it right, a dynamic field, semicolon. So like, let's literally do it. Hold on. Let's actually like write one. So, okay. So here's how we're going to do it. All right. Let me close this. So we're going to do first name right here, first name, that's your dynamic field, semicolon. Then you've got your first word, comma, your next word, maybe a third one, just depends how long the words are. You want to throw in a third one? Cool. You don't want to throw a third one in there? No problem. That's fine. And then you got your pattern interrupt, right? The one that's just like, what are they talking about in this one? I got to see what's happening here. Because our mind likes puzzles, right? We're all puzzle people. You've seen these gimmicky things on LinkedIn or somebody posts like, it's like shapes and numbers and they're like, can you find the pattern? And then like that post gets like 5,000 likes and you're like, how? That's so stupid. That was just clickbait. Because we love that kind of stuff. We love testing our IQ. So when we get an email that's like a wordplay, we're like, what? Again, going back to the Keanu Reeves meme, it's like, I don't get it, but I understand it. Like, I know what those words are. I don't understand why they're in that order.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So Tate and then Lisa is also asking around like the personalization in the subject line. There isn't really, it looks like with wordplay, you're not putting a lot of personalization in there. It's more like merge tag, first name.
Yeah. You are not
super scalable.
This is like wholesale customization. You don't need to personalize when you use a wordplay, which is nice. So you're not thinking about like, oh God, if it's just to Jason, it's like, look, I'm emailing CFOs about paperless invoicing. All of them understand the words invoice, paperless, and then 4G on the moon. They're going to be like, who? Where'd you come from?
Yeah. Got it. Can we spend just a couple of minutes here? Because I'm just looking at the Q&A too. A lot of people are asking questions around this. When you said invoicing, paper cuts, 4G on the moon, can you walk us through like invoicing? Like if we were to kind of look at like dissecting the formula and where those words came from, mm-hmm. Is there anything that you can share around, like if someone's thinking about what words do I choose? If it's maybe not like a China Ford Einstein like that, it's more like, hey, 2 out of 3 of these are probably going to be somewhat related to the reason that I'm reaching out, then one's going to be kind of off the wall. Like any advice on like thinking about like how someone selling something else could think about like what words to choose?
Yeah. The easiest way to do it is like this. Think the first word can be product related, like invoicing. The second word is offering related, like paperless, right? Or pain related, paper cuts, right? So it's some sort of like product, offering, or pain. And then the third word is just like it just looks random, but you're going to tie it in. It's some sort of provocation, right? Like I said, 4G on the moon. It's like, how on earth in 2020 can we get 4G on the moon, but we can't get your invoices paperless? Like, I think we can do it. Maybe you do too, or call me crazy, but I think we can, right? So you want something like offering or product related, then something pain related. Then you want to throw in something that is just a complete pattern interrupt that confuses the reader.
Okay, I'm going to throw this into the chat for you guys too, so you can see a little bit of kind of a formula.
So now, hold on. I want to show the other two because these questions might all relate. Okay, so let me jump to the next method because, like I said, there's going to be people who are going to nail word plays. This is the hardest one. I started with the hardest one. It gets easier. So hold on tight. Okay. Because also I know psychology and I know you're going to remember the last thing I say way better than the first thing. That's why I started off with the hard thing first. Okay. So believe me, there's psychology at work here. I know it looks like I'm just drawing on my computer, but I'm not. So the second thing is number plays. Okay. So number plays are very similar to word plays, easier to come up with. Okay. Oh God, that was just way off. Let me freaking write correctly. Plays. There we go. All right. So number plays, same game using numbers. All right. So 12, 24, 50, 4,652. It's just like, what? Like, okay, 12. I know 12 is 12 times 2 is 24. 24 plus, I don't know, 50, it's almost double. And then there's just like this random number at the end where I'm like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? Number plays work incredibly well because most of your businesses have numbers for you to use. You have the number of customers you have the ROI of your product, you have, for example, the amount of time or money you save a client on average, you have the number of integrations your product does, some sort of number like that. That's the story you're going to sell. But you're going to use those numbers to do a pattern interrupt right in the subject line. And the body of the email looks something like this. It'd be like, I know it seems random, but these numbers tell a story. 12 is the number of hours on average a CFO spends on, invoicing mistakes every quarter. 24 is, and you tell the story of those numbers in the email. Okay. So we all have business numbers. Like all of you guys have been trained on the business numbers, whether that's the number of customers you have, the percent of the Fortune 500 that use your product, again, how much time or money you save people, the ROI, the average cost, whatever it is. Make a number play and then pick 2 or 3 numbers, same as a word play, that are similar, and then one number that just completely breaks the pattern.
And is this with same kind of deal? Are you putting commas between the numbers? Is there any
Yes.
other kind of okay.
Yes. And a little fun fact for you, because I've been doing this for over 8 years now. Number plays on average have a slightly higher open rate than word plays. Word plays on average have a slightly higher response rate than number plays. So if you can't come up with a word play, come up with a number. If you can't come up with a number play, try to come up with a word, but both work really, really well. You're jumping over that low bar set by people just sending like follow up or do you have time to meet in the crap that we saw earlier on Todd Capone's inbox screenshot.
So quick question on this one. Someone was asking about the Gong report, which I'm very aware of. I don't know if you saw the Gong report about the mentioning ROI in emails and the response rate was lower and like that sort of stuff. What's your thoughts on that? Does this conflict with that?
No, it doesn't, because when you're sending an email with a ROI that starts with time for a quick meeting,
yeah,
you're not going to get a good response rate. When you send a number play, opening subject line, and then you tie it back to their business with the ROI, that's a lot more interesting because you just made a puzzle for me and I'm trying to figure it out. Now, I will say this, everybody has naturally in them the voice of the skeptic. Like when I hear claims of, abs in 3 days, I'm like, bullshit. Like you can't, that's not how it works. So don't make people scream bullshit in their mind by putting in numbers that are just so absurd. You can't really back them up. And that's the nice thing, is that you try to pick a couple numbers that are reasonable and then one that's a little bit insane. And that's how you get their interest. Now, I'm going to give you guys another fun fact for joining this webinar. We've tested not explaining the numbers before in the email, and we saw no difference in results. So let me repeat that. We've done number plays that were like numbers based on something, but we didn't fully explain it in the email. We just got to the point and we saw no drop off in performance. So what I mean is, you might have this number play, you only explain like 12 and this, and you don't even bother to explain what 24 50 were, even though they were something related, and people will still respond to the email. Because we end up forgetting what the subject line was once we jump into the email. What's the point of the subject line? It just opens the door. Then they walk in and they forget about the door because it just closes behind them. So if you write a good email that's short and concise, and you've got a great subject line for people to check it out, they go in. So we were doing this at BioIQ. We were selling like vaccinations and stuff to small businesses. And so we would put, our first number was how many cases in their state. And then the second number was how many states have been affected by like an outbreak or something that was going on. And then the third number was how many Walmarts there are in the country, because Walmart was our partner that we did the vaccinations through. So it'd be something like 250, 33, and then I think, I don't know how many Walmarts there were. It was some absurd number, like 5,000 something, right? So super weird number play. Perfect, because that's what we want. Weird numbers that don't really have a pattern. And then we'd be like, the first number, let's say 134 is how many cases of hepatitis A outbreak there were. We already are seeing 33 states affected. It's coming to your business soon. What are you going to do about it? And that would be our email. And we wouldn't even explain the 5,000 number, which was a number of Walmart locations.
Yeah. So this is really something that I've picked up from you over the last year or so that you do really well, is this kind of like, you do this thing where you're able to challenge and educate at the same exact time. Where you're able to like challenge their perspective on something or their way that they normally do things. And you're able to educate them on, like, because the number of cases in their state, number of states affected, that's education, right? You're telling them about something that they should be caring about. And you're able to kind of challenge and educate at the same time. Is that on purpose? Something that you're thinking about? Like, what can I share with them that they would really care about that's really going to challenge the way that they do business right now, or look at this particular thing?
Yeah, because you're always selling against the status quo. That's your number one competition. Doing nothing is the easiest decision because it costs you nothing. So you're always selling against the status quo because you want buyers who understand that actually it does cost you something. I just showed you what it did. And if you decide to do that, you take the risk on yourself. And I can't help you if you decide to do that. So you want to make the status quo risky. You want to elicit anxiety. Anxiety is what you want. So so these number plays, they're puzzling, they're confusing, sometimes even bewildering, because you're just like, I don't get why that happened, and it makes you open. And they're short. I mean, guys, it's really easy to put 1224, 4,652 in a subject line. It's not complicated, right? And then your preview line is literally, these numbers tell a story. That's it. And then you do like space bar, right? Enter, and then you write your email. So they have to click in and be like, well, okay. Right. And again, it doesn't need to be the wittiest number play on the planet. It could just be like the number of customers you have, the percent of the Fortune 500 that use your product, and then you're like ROI. And you don't even need to explain it all in detail, right? Don't write an essay about the numbers, because like I said, we found that you don't even have to explain the numbers. It doesn't reduce performance at all if you don't explain the numbers.
Yeah, this is a cool one.
All right.
I have a ton of questions, but we'll wait for you to get through the third one, make sure we cover everything. And I got a couple examples that people shared too. I think that'd be fun to show people.
Okay. So the third one is the negative play. Okay. So here's what I love about negatives, like a negative play. All right. So everybody knows the feeling of negativity. It's universal. I like things that are universal. When I see something universal, I jump on it. It's my favorite, right? Because I like to work with the familiar. I don't want to confuse my prospect with something they don't know about. So negative subject lines are really, really powerful because they stand out in the sea of fake positivity that sellers often use. Let me give you an example. For some reason, when you jump into sales mode, I'm doing like little air quotes, sales mode, you start saying dumb things like circling back, moving forward, I'd be happy to show you, things that you never say on the street. Like if you and I were talking, Jason, you wouldn't be like, oh, I'd be happy to show you that. I'd be like, yeah, check it out. Right. But then when you're talking to like a customer or a prospect, you're like, oh, I'd be happy to answer your questions. Right. It's like, what? It's this kind of false positivity because you have an agenda and you're trying to get money from them. So using a negative play is using negative words to get them to open the email. So let me give you an example of what this looks like. Your subject line might literally be like, no, thank you. No more. Enough. Stop it. We're done. Hold it. I don't think so. That's literally your subject line. I don't think so. And then what are you going to tie it in? How do you hook it in the body of the email? It's something like, people have been telling us for the last 3 years that they've had enough of dealing with invoicing errors eating up their Friday afternoon when they want to be going home. We put a stop to it. That could be your email, right? Because now you're using the negative emotion that you wrote in the subject line in the email. So take an example of any negative word. Like we said, no, thank you. No, thank you. It might be like an example of this that we actually did. So a real world example. When we wrote the cold emails for a startup that I was advising earlier this year, they sold to wealth advisors, okay, financial solutions. So one of the words that the negative play that we did was like, sick of it, okay? And what we would write in the subject line was sick of it. The email, the preview text was like, enough having to cobble together 6 tools just to be able to make a risk profile for your clients. We're sick of it. And we've heard that others are sick of it too. Here's what we did about it. So it's a negative play. So people see the subject line, they're like, sick of it. Like, is somebody telling me off? Did I do something wrong? Did something bad happen? And they click into it. And then they realize, oh, okay, yeah, I can relate to that. Or they say, oh, you know what? I can't relate to what he's saying. I'm not cobbling together tools. I'm fine, which is great because your email just provoked the person to go one way or the other. They either resonate with the emotional cue you're trying to establish or they don't. And that's all you can ask for in an email.
So do you put their first name before it, or is it just the
Oh,
no
for
thank you?
sure. 100% put the first name because that's what makes it so alarming. Yeah, you get an email right now, Jason, that says, Jason, stop it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to open up, and it's going to make my heart race a little bit too, actually.
Right?
Yeah.
You're just gonna be like, what is this about?
Yeah.
Or if I send you an email or say like, Jason, no more.
Yeah.
You're just gonna be like, wait, did I piss someone off? And then my email's gonna be like, Jason, no more having to spend hours auditing, and editing all the content you produce on your webinar series. Your time is better spent with your bootcamp clients. Here's how. And you're like, oh, that's kind of clever.
So some people are worried about alienating the person. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, well, I will go back to what I said earlier. I'm selling you against the status quo, whoever asked that question. And this is the status quo. What camp would you rather be in? Your email getting deleted or your email getting opened?
I don't think it's going to have that bad of a response anyways, though, because it's not misleading.
It's not.
It's not misleading like you're saying, hey, Belal, lose 25 pounds in 8 weeks, and it's like about something. It's not misleading.
It's not like, Jason, you're fired, it's not that kind of negative. It's just like, Jason, no more. You're like, no more what?
Yep.
I'm saying no more to you wasting your time editing, webinar scripts and text.
I love this, man.
So, the question becomes, what are you willing to do to get the email open? I'm not saying write something negative that's like harmful. I'm saying write something that piques their interest to go, wait, what? Let me see what's happening in this email. And then they do. So that's 3 formulas. You got word plays, number plays, negative plays.
Can we take a look at some examples that people have submitted?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm gonna stop sharing for a second because I wanna see clearly.
Here, let me share. Oops, it's the wrong screen. Yeah, there we go. You guys can see the email from Richard Warner.
Yes.
Okay, cool. This is one I saw Richard throw into the chat that I thought was kind of cool. What do you think about this one?
I love this. Wait,
And I love.
let's switch the words though. GPS, retargeting, right? Because I follow you when you say GPS. I get it when you say retargeting. Okay. And then instead of missiles, because it's a little bit too easy for me, maybe just be like fire and like put it in caps. Like, let's make it like what? Yeah. That's an interesting subject line, right? Because I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you. Like GPS retargeting, why are we firing? What
Yeah.
happened? Right? Is a shotgun blast. I think that's what he meant to say instead of based. I love this. This is a great subject line and preview line, world class, top marks. Who did this? Richard, dude, I'm thoroughly impressed. This is a great example.
Here, I'll drop this subject line back in there for you, Richard, so you got it. Cool. And then Alex Smith, I don't know if you've met Alex. I know Alex, but this was something I think that he was practicing that he would write like to me.
Interesting. Prospecting, Tylenol, Tesla. Yeah. Yeah. I like this. What's Tylenol got to do with it then? See, in a word play, you have to explain all the words. In a number play, you don't. So that's why I gave that caveat for number plays, not word plays. So my mind's thinking, what does Tylenol have to do with it? I got Tesla, I got prospecting, I didn't follow Tylenol.
Do you mix in word plays and number plays together?
Never.
Really?
Oh my God, guys, never mix word and number plays. It doesn't work. Because then people are like, no, this is just weird. Like, like they're like, this is like some spammer from, trying to like sell me Bitcoins.
Okay.
It gets too weird. And there was like, oh, there's a cutoff point and I don't know exactly where it is, but it happens at the intersection of a word play and a number play.
Interesting. Okay.
Don't do it.
Good job, Alex. I love this analogy too.
I love it. Yeah. It's a great
It's so human. It's so like it's an analogy that you would make if you were talking to someone and you were venting about how like bad salespeople are at copywriting, and you're just like, dude, like what the fuck? Like Elon Musk can put, his whatever into the Atlantic, but like we can't get salespeople that most of them being college educated, people like to like write good emails.
I love it.
It's exactly how you would vent.
It's a provocative statement that makes you go, I agree.
Yeah.
What are we going to do about it? Like so what do you got? Let me see what you got now. You've piqued my interest completely. And again, this email is going to obliterate the follow-ups. Can I have, 15 minutes? Are you available? Just checking in, subject lines that are getting sent today.
Yeah. Good job, you guys. I figured because we got about 10 minutes here, there's like 60 questions in the Q&A. I figured we'd get to a couple. Alex Smith, we already answered your question around first name in the subject line. That's definitely something you recommend. Yes. And it sounds like you don't recommend doing any sort of personalization in the subject line. Just customize it. First name merge tags, all you need.
Taboo. I disagree with the personalization, folks. You don't need it. If you write good copy and you use word plays and number plays, and you have frameworks that you use where you're using some analogy or metaphor to challenge your buyer, the reality is the pain of a CFO at one B2B SaaS company is the same at another. They're not that far apart. Okay. They're all apples, So if I message something about apples, they'll get it because they're birds of a feather. They understand each other's world. So I don't need to personalize it. I'm not saying personalization doesn't work. I'm not saying if you're doing it, stop. I'm just saying it's a much more nuanced thing. It's extremely advanced. Maybe for enterprise sales and extremely competitive environments, it makes sense. But customization can work what I'm showing you right now, none of that is personalization. That is all customization. The example that Alex gave, he can send that to every VP of sale.
Yep.
And he's going to get a wonderful open rate with a weird prospecting Tylenol Tesla. He's going to get.
Okay, so I want to share this just because you were giving me shit about it. There's a technique I really like. I just call it creating curiosity. This subject line, dude, I usually see 50 to 60% open rate with.
Wow.
I know it's not a wordplay. I know it's not fancy. It doesn't have any, sort of numbers or anything in it, but this right here, for some reason, it gets an open, man. Like, this is the number one subject line I recommend that people use if they're just really struggling with it. Like, just try this and see what happens.
Yeah.
And then the other one too is this is like a rule of three, but it's definitely not a wordplay with this. Like what we did, this is like for a nonprofit that called Souls for Souls, actually. And their angle was, we're going to help keep shoes and clothes out of, dumps and waste and from being thrown away. And we're going to give it to people that need it in America or third world countries. So sustainability was their angle.
Yep.
Just through sustainability, merge tag the company subject line, and then 2020. And the email was about like, hey, I saw that sustainability is really big for you at Tom's. Looks like it's a big part of your 2020 initiatives, according to this. And again, this would have more like a 45 or 50% open rate. Still pretty good.
It is a wordplay. That's a wordplay, right? Because I'm like, sustainability. Okay, Tom's, I don't know what that is. 2020, that's the year. I know sustainability is popular this year. What's going on with Tom's? So that is a wordplay. In fact, I would have reordered it. I would have said sustainability 2020 Tom's.
Yeah. And then I could also throw the person's first name in there too, it sounds like.
Yep.
I love this. Like, this looks really interesting when you go like this.
Yep. Always put the first name semicolon.
Yeah.
People are just like, wait, who? Okay.
And dude, I know this is another really simple one, man, but like if you call someone first and leave a voicemail and say, I'm about to send you an email. Hey, Belal, just left a voicemail. This one has like 60+% open rates. Usually.
I hate this one.
It works though. I don't like it either. I'm not the biggest fan of it, but it's kind of like the any thoughts ? Follow-up. I'm not a huge fan of that either, but dude, that's the highest response rate of any email.
I can't believe it. I don't believe it. How many, what's the data size? What's the data pool? Like how many sends is that based on?
I mean, hundreds of sends with individual reps. I don't know what it's like across a company, but hundreds of sends.
It just feels so easy to delete because I'm just like, you left me a voicemail? No, thanks. I didn't want to listen to it and I don't want to read this. Like that's my kind of like brutal, like, no.
The other one too I see work really well is this.
I'm shocked.
Voicemail from Jason Bay.
That one I can maybe believe because I'm like, wait, is this like did I get like a text,
Exactly.
subscribe thing of like, they sometimes do this, not subscribe, excuse me. What word am I looking for? When you do like voice to text.
Yeah, it's like a transcription.
Excuse me. Yeah, transcription. Yeah, transcribe, not subscribe. Yeah, nope. But yeah, that might be interesting. But this like, hey, Jason just left a voicemail. I mean, you know what? We've got 273 people on this webinar right now. Another 400 plus who have signed up that weren't able to attend short notice. Prove me wrong, guys. You show me that, hey, first name just left a voicemail can work, and I will use that. I'll be the first to do it. It just seems too generic and too easily copied by too many people. But if it's hot right now, here's the thing about subject lines. Everything I showed you, okay? Everything I showed you in 1 year's time could be irrelevant. If everybody starts sending word plays and there's literally 6 million sellers in the US, so I'm not too concerned. But like if by the next year word plays all of a sudden becomes the rave, it will become ineffective.
I just don't think people are going to be clever enough to do it at scale.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I've been using word plays for 8 years now and they haven't failed me. I learned it 8 years ago, hasn't slowed me down yet. But there will, I'd imagine one day they probably won't work anymore. But for now, the grass is green and I'm still rolling. So, if just left you a voicemail works in 2020, use it, go forth. But I like word plays and number plays and negative plays because then I get to hook it into an idea. I don't like voicemail because I think it's too generic and I don't see how I'm hooking that into an idea.
Yeah, I agree with you. 100% on that. I think it was Josh asked a question. What are what are like one or two copywriting resources that you recommend? He asked specifically for books, but do you have any resources that you recommend?
Eddie from Very Good Copy is a
Is that a
phenomenal.
website?
Yeah, he's on LinkedIn. His website's Very Good Copy. Masterclass. I mean, he makes my head spin. Very, very good stuff. And then the other guy you should follow is Harry Dry, young kid out of the UK, has a website, marketingexamples.com, and he just shows all sorts of B2B, B2C versions of like copywriting. And you just get the idea of like, oh, that's what good copy is. Like now that I keep seeing examples over and over again.
Oh, dude, this is such a cool website. I dropped those into the chat for you guys. Do you want to just kind of keep rapid firing through a couple more questions?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so this is one that I saw a lot. Phil Berliner asks, how do these techniques pair with C-suite contacts, products with graduate degrees, like people that might be resistant to something that's like kind of funny or offbeat or sort of out of the norm?
It works better. I
think it works way better too. I think it's a fear that we have as salespeople that we're going to alienate someone by having a little bit of fun. And I don't care, a Fortune 500 company, the C-suite at that company, they still watch Netflix. They still do stupid stuff.
Learning the same way you and I do. They don't have some special, they got to eat food just like you and I do. They got to use the bathroom just like you and I do. So their brain works the same as ours. When they see a pattern interrupt, they go, just like you and I do. They're not special. They're not any different. They just have less of an attention span and they maybe think too much of themselves. But that makes it even better because then when you give them a puzzle, there's a little bit of ego on the line and they want to figure out what it means. So if anything, it works better, not worse.
Gotcha. Tate asks, any thoughts on the basics of avoiding being picked up by junk or spam filters? Anything to avoid subject line wise or email copy wise in your experience?
So the spam folder stuff is because of the shitty body of the email, not the subject line. Subject lines are going to get you in the spam filter. It's going to be you writing a message that like tries to get somebody to book a 30-minute meeting on the first touch cold email, which is a ridiculous thing to ask. And then people are like spam because you're going too fast, too far. And if enough people click spam, you get marked as an unsafe sender, and that's that. So there's a whole, if you Google email deliverability, that's a whole nother world. Yeah. What we're talking about today is just getting your email open. None of what I taught you is going to help you or defend you from getting marked as spam. That's email deliverability. It's a different subject.
And the words are kind of obvious that you would want to avoid too. Like you don't want to put like special deal or free or anything. Like if you Google words to avoid putting in your email, it's like blatantly, it's like stuff you get mass blast from like weird countries and like spammy kind of stuff about. Let's do one more. I'm just looking through the questions. Megan asked, could the wild number be 0?
I'd have to see it. It could, but that's not really a wild number. A wild number is like a negative number, you know, a really large number, a very specific number. Like if you did 0.12, I'd be like, oh yeah, that definitely can work. Cause it's like, why are you making it so specific? Right. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you want the number that breaks the pattern in the number play to be just a weird number. It's either really specific, really large, negative. It just doesn't fit the mold of the other numbers where you're like, okay, I was with you. And then you just like went off the rails. What's going on here?
Yeah. Gotcha. I agree. Dude, we're out of time. I'm going to drop Belal's LinkedIn into the chat. Let's go blow up his LinkedIn. Not that you could use more followers, Belal, but he's got some really good stuff to check out. I'll send out the replay to you guys probably later today or first thing tomorrow. But dude, thank you for coming on, man. This is like, I learned a ton from this, and like, I'm thinking of like, how can I like chop this up and make sure to share more of it with our audience so they can learn from you as well, dude. But I appreciate you coming on and I appreciate all the interaction from everyone. Anything you want to leave us with, Belal?
No, I'm glad you guys are all here. I appreciate you taking the time. If you want to send me your subject lines after this,
Oh,
I'll totally do it. Maybe we got to do like a separate session where we just like roast people's subject lines. I'd love
sure.
to like, I'd love to just kind of geek out on subject lines for a little bit. I want some like real world example. Like we can do like marketing examples with like subjectlineexamples.com and just blow up people's subject lines. That'd be great.
Dude, that's a really good. I'm going to call you right after this. If you got a minute, dude, we can talk about
Let's do
that.
it.
Cool. All right. Later, everyone. Thank you for your time. We'll see
Bye.
ya.